episode of Victory Lap. I am your host, Stephanie Nielsen, and I am so excited about today's show. One of my all-time favorite quotes is by the amazing visionary Henry Ford. Ford says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right." How simply perfect is that statement? I remember when I first started to understand that the most important tool that I had to facilitate my success was my own thoughts. This realization made me become aware of my self-talk and how many limiting beliefs I had, and I was so surprised. I always believed that I was such a positive person. But when I began to pay attention to the things that I said to myself and about myself, I was appalled. I would have never spoken this way to somebody that I loved. Yet here I was, self-deprecating continuously. It saddens me to think of all the negativity and nasty comments I used to throw my way. But that was then, and this is now. Today, my belief in self is the highest it's ever been, and it just keeps expanding. Each step I take increases my appreciation and my capabilities, and the internal dialogue that I have is so positive, loving, and inspirational. It also attracts more positive influences into my life. People like today's guest, Paul Martinelli. I am so excited to have Paul on my show. I cannot even express it. Paul is known as the assassinator of limiting beliefs, and he is one of my greatest mentors. Paul knows what it takes to overcome obstacles and to build an empire by believing in yourself and holding your vision, even when everyone else tells you that your success is against all odds. So it is with great honor and awe that I have the opportunity to welcome to my show the remarkable Paul Martinelli. Yay! Hello, Paul. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to my show, Victory Lap.
Right on. Hey, congratulations. I'm doing great. Thank you. This is wonderful. Congratulations. This is wonderful. I am so happy for you. You know how many people? Do you know how many people want to do what you're doing and are sitting on their butt still thinking about it? And here you are doing it. So way to go.
Well, thank you so much. It's taken me a long time to get off my butt, not going to lie. But one is really getting clarity on your vision, right? I think that's the thing. When you're not sure what to do, you don't get that clarity and you don't know how to move forward. But you know, as I said in my intro, you're one of my mentors, and the best decision I ever made was joining up for mentorship through John Maxwell. So thank you for encouraging me on that one, because just in the few weeks that I've been part of that program, you have helped me get so clear on my vision and understand what the steps are and how important it is to just take that step, because the other one's open as you do. And it's true. I'm seeing this in my life, and it's just been incredible. I can't wait to see where it all goes.
Oh, well, wonderful. You know, clarity of vision is critical for many reasons. Two, I think that people kind of skip is one is, you know, clarity of vision removes confusion, and confused people do nothing, right?
Yes.
The other thing, though, I think that vision does is vision calibrates the vibrational frequency of our being. You know, you and I are constantly broadcasting the dominating vibrational frequency. We know it when we intuitively meet someone. We walk in and we meet somebody and say, you know, I just didn't get a good vibe from that person. Well, what are you saying? You're saying, I'm consciously aware of that person's negative vibration and it's not a match. Right. So when we get real clear on our vision, we calibrate the energy signature that we're broadcasting now.
It's true. And when you do that, it's amazing the people that show up. This has been one of the most, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, this has just been so incredible for me to see the people that are showing up in my world and wanting to be guests on my show. And like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. And at the same time, it's lawful, because they don't just kind of show up, they're attracted. Because, you know, the law of vibration, when we have clarity on our vision, we calibrate and broadcast out our frequency. the law of vibration sets up what Emerson said was the law of all laws, which is the law of cause and effect. So as we broadcast out the dominating, energy signature of our being and our intention, we then attract to us the people, the places, the things, the conditions, and the circumstances that are in harmony with that same energy. So it is amazing, and at the same time, predictable and lawful.
Yes. But you're right. It is predictable, lawful. I agree with you. But what's amazing is when you create the awareness to understand that, and then you're able to sit back and watch it unfold. I always say that the more that I let go and trust the process, it's like waking up to Christmas every day, because you don't really know what you're going to get, but it's always amazing. And it's super fun. Like, it makes life so much more enjoyable when you're not trying to hold on to that outcome and you're just trying to move forward in the right, like you say, vibration or frequency, right?
There's something about expectation energy, isn't it? Like when you're anticipating, you don't know what it's going to be, but you're trusting this process. It's, you're always amazed, but also at the same time, again, you understand how the laws work. And when you're in harmony with those laws, everything seems to go a lot better.
Super cool. So, Paul, I'd like you to tell the viewers a little bit of your backstory, because I think you have an amazing story and you've overcome some great obstacles to get to where you are today. And if you don't mind sharing just a little bit about that, and then I've got some fun little questions to ask you that maybe you can also share with the viewers.
Yeah, well, thank you, Stephanie. My story is probably similar to a lot of your listeners and viewers. I mean, at a young age, most of us develop a learning model where we diminish and marginalize ourselves, where we play life small because it's safer to play small. So for me, I was when my mom was pregnant with me, my father abandoned the family when she was just 3 months pregnant with me. And so I was raised in a single family home, and we grew up very poor. And the home of my upbringing was not a safe place. It wasn't safe emotionally, it wasn't safe verbally, and it wasn't safe physically. It was pretty violent. And because of that environment and that stress and pressure, when most young children begin to speak, I didn't. I developed a terrible speech impediment of a stutter. And, if you know anything about stuttering in children, it's very rarely a neurological issue. It's almost always anxiety, stress, post-traumatic stress syndrome that causes it.
I have heard that.
And as a stutterer, I was picked on, as most of us were in school. And back in the 1970s, a speech impediment was defined as a learning disability. So I had all the kids on the playground calling me, "Hey, dummy, hey, stupid," as they would mock my stutter. And then I had teachers who were—
kids are so mean. Kids are so mean.
If you can get off the playground of life safe, that's an accomplishment, And teachers back in the 1970s were programmed that a learning disability and a speech impediment were one and the same. And so, I knew being picked on hurt my feelings, but I didn't know the long-term impact of what was happening. Was that our beliefs are created two ways. They're created first through an emotional sudden impact. This is when something happens to us, and in that moment, we define the energy as our truth of that. So I defined myself and my own self-image that I was dumb and stupid. The second way is through repetition of time. This is the power of affirmations. And so by having the school announcements every single day, say my name for the teacher to send me down to the special ed room, of course, I was programmed to believe. And we never outperform our own self-image, and our belief drives our behavior. So for the first half of my life, I ended up failing out of school. Here's the interesting thing, Stephanie, is that most of us have been programmed to believe that it is our DNA and our environment that controls ultimately our destiny. But my two older brothers were highly successful. One graduated from same high school that I failed out of. He went into the University of Pittsburgh, became an Apache helicopter pilot. My other graduated from Carnegie Mellon University with a PhD in engineering. My sister graduated from the same school I failed at, number one in her nursing class. So we had the same DNA. We had the same environment. What was different was the image that we held of ourselves, our self-belief.
It's true. Yep, I agree. I've got 5 siblings and we're all very, very different. And for me, I was a cute little blonde thing when I was young. I did not realize that I was intelligent until I was in my 30s.
Wow.
I held the belief that I was just a stupid little blonde thing. Yeah. Crazy.
And so and that those belief drives all of our decisions. I failed out of school. I started a small commercial cleaning company. I was cleaning toilets late at night. And I think through divine intervention, God put a gentleman in my life. His name was Patrick Hayes, and he was my first mentor. He gave me a book. He gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich. And
a great book.
He spent the next, oh my goodness, it's a must read. And he took me through that book for the next 3 years, word for word, page by page, and something miraculous happened. I became a millionaire as a janitor. High school dropout janitor becomes a millionaire before I was 30. Since then, I've gone on to build 5 multi-million-dollar companies, generating over $500 million in revenue. And you have to say, like, what happened? You know, what happened? And the interesting thing is that Patrick never once told me anything about business. He never told me anything about what to think. He taught me how to think. And most people just never learn how to think.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on that. My transformation of self had nothing to do with learning any kind of skill. It was all on learning how to think differently about myself.
It's so true. I mean, and that's key. You know, Wayne Dyer said that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Yeah. And we understand that. Yeah, I mean, we understand that from the observer perspective, right? We understand that when we observe things outside of ourselves. But it's so very true that when we change the way we look at ourselves, when we change the perspective of how we see ourselves, both our self-image and our self-esteem. Self-image is the image I hold of me. Self-esteem is my personal self-regard, how I value me, right? The composite of those two create our self-belief or our self-identity. And I don't care who you study. You read the Bible, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Study James Allen. He tells us we don't get in this life what we want, we get who we are. Look at the work of Dr. Maxwell Team, Cybernetics. He says you never outperform your self-image. Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting because John Maxwell, he talks a lot about values, the importance of values. And it goes back to what you're saying, because I truly, truly believe this. The more that I value myself, the higher value I set for myself and the higher values I receive. But it all starts here. It all starts within, right? I have to have those values first for myself.
It's always an inside game. It's a you and you deal. You know, when we're operating at a low level of awareness, there's 7 levels of conscious awareness. The lowest level is animal awareness. And it has to operate from, you know, who's the matter with me today? This is where, you know, we are programmed to blame other people.
Well, I mean, that's what we've learned from the time that we're little, that everything is outside of us. It's funny because I do these little pace lap moments as part of my victory lap, I don't know, portfolio, I guess you could say, right? And they're just 2-3 minute little videos on a thought. And that was one of the ones that I was talking about yesterday, is that happiness is inside. It's an inside job, right? We always think that it's related to the people around us or what we're achieving, or no, you can choose to be happy in any given moment. And the more that you choose to be happy, despite what's happening around you, the greater experience your life is and better things come to you.
Yeah, look, if anybody or anything can make you mad, sad, or glad, you've been had, right?
Yeah,
you fall into
a
trap.
I've never heard that before.
You know?
Yeah,
it's so true.
I love that.
I mean, it has to be an inside game.
Yeah, 100%. So with that being said, I want to address a few little questions if you don't mind, and maybe you can share some of your insights on this. As you know, Victory Lap, we want to talk about maximizing our cruise control, right? Which is our comfort zone. I personally don't necessarily think that the comfort zone is a bad place to be, because for me, oftentimes my creativity comes from my comfort zone. But we can't stay safe in our comfort zone, if that makes sense. And I liken it to me driving a car. You know, when I'm going for a long road trip and I'm on cruise control, that's when I'm processing and I'm thinking and I'm being creative and ideas are coming to me. But I can't stay there forever, because eventually I got to get back into the traffic, or I got to get my turn or whatever, right? So how do you maximize your cruise control?
I think the most important thing is, you know, the comfort zone can be a very dangerous spot, right? I mean, certainly if you're
get too safe,
growing, sure. If you're not, by nature in a comfort zone, you're not moving forward, and if you're not moving forward, we know the law of vibration tells us that everything's in a constant state of change. There is no such thing as inertia. When someone says, you know, I like things just the way they are, they're announcing their ignorance to that law. You're either moving forward or backwards.
Right.
But it is a necessary place for us. And I think the strategy that we have to use when we're in a comfort zone is we have to learn to harvest the good.
Yes.
What from this place here can I harvest for my next highest good? Because the content of our life, ultimately becomes the evolution for our advancement. So, but what we have to do is we have to take that content and we have to turn it into life curriculum, so that curriculum becomes the evolution through which we grow.
Right. I don't know who quoted it, but there's a saying out there that says that if we're not growing, we're dying. And once we hit the age of maturity, the only way that we can grow is through self-development.
Yeah.
And being a big proponent of self-development, I love that. So my next question is, you know, we all get our pit stops, right? We get stuck in something, and oftentimes our pit stops can be something that takes us down, and we become a victim, or we become, you know, broken by it. Although I hate that word, but it's an opportunity to power them up and to use that as a growth potential. So there's two questions I have for you around that. One is, what are you doing to get out of your pit stops? Because I don't care how successful you are, we all get stuck in our pit stops. Because like I said, if we're not growing, right? And then my second question around that is, how has that changed for you today compared to what it was like in the past? Because I know in the past, when I got into my pit stops, it was a lot harder to get out of them.
Isn't that true, right? You know, with age comes wisdom and awareness. It's a beautiful thing. So I think, you know, I'll answer the questions backwards. You know, what I used to do was fight and force, right? So if I was stuck, I would try to do whatever it was I was doing, just more of it, right?
Right.
You know,
Yes.
So when you're spinning your wheels, you know, having lived up north and being stuck in the snow enough times, you know, when the back wheel spins, you just go deeper, right?
Right.
And so, you know, so what I'm doing differently now is, again, I'm understanding that we operate by law. There are 7 laws that govern the way that we think and behave. 7 laws that govern the law of creation. One of those laws is the law of rhythm. And the law of rhythm is the ebb and flow of all the energy in the universe. And so we see it represented in high tide, low tide, sunrise, sunset. We see the changing of the seasons, spring, summer, winter, and fall. We see it in the moon, full moon, half moon, quarter moon. We see it in every aspect of the universe. Is this law of rhythm? You and I are in the universe, therefore we're subject to the law. No one escapes it. And so there are times in our lives where we wake up in the morning, we're not sick, nothing's wrong with us, but we're not 100% on our game physically. We're in a rhythmic low.
Yes.
There's other times where we wake wake up, we feel really attached to God. We feel aware of our oneness with God. Everything is great. And there's other days where we wake up and say, where are you, God? And so we're in a spiritual low. And so by recognizing where we are rhythmically, we can then say, okay, if I'm in a rhythmic low, stuck, if I'm spinning my wheels, it is time to double down in activity. Perhaps the best thing to do is to take your foot off.
Yeah.
And so what I'll suggest, So what I'll suggest people do is rest, relax, recuperate, and make reservations, right? It's a great time to go to a spa.
Yeah.
Great time to go to take. There's lots of people right now, especially with what's going on with COVID, who are locked in, and they would be really well served to pack a bag and go 3 blocks away or 5 miles away to a local hotel, check in, take some reservations, go out to dinner, relax, binge watch your favorite thing on Netflix, because the underlying concept here is that force negates. So if I take my hand and I put it against yours, your natural response is to resist.
Yes.
Your natural response is to push back. And what we resist persists. And so when we're stuck and we're doubling down on whatever it is that we think we need to be doing, sometimes it's a lot less doing and a lot more being that gets us unstuck.
That's brilliant. You're absolutely right on that. This is something that I'm learning as well. And it also shows compassion to yourself. Instead of beating yourself up because you're stuck, just like you say, letting go, taking yourself to a spa, make reservations, be kind to yourself. And then when you're recovered, you have more energy and more desire to keep moving forward again, right? Instead of feeling, oh, I let myself down, or I failed, or I, all the negative self-talk that brings us back to that place that we don't want to live in anymore, right?
Yeah, it's a necessary part of our journey. When you think about it, if you've ever watched the Olympics and you've seen a pole vaulter or a high jumper, a long jumper, what do? Well, they walk up to the line first and look at whatever that target is that they've got to do.
Right.
And then what they do is they walk backwards. They actually go in the opposite direction of the goal. Because they know that by going backwards, it gives them the runway to build the momentum necessary to go over the goal.
I love that. What a fantastic analogy. Love it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, one more question. How do you celebrate your victories? And maybe 2 questions. Why is it so important that we celebrate our victories?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people fail at is, the answer to the question of what matters is always everything.
Yes. Everything
matters. Yeah. Tell me the one thing that doesn't matter, and I'll find somebody who will tell you that that's the most important thing. Right. And so I think what's important is that most of us will celebrate the arrival point. Once we reach the destination, right? We've arrived at that goal, and now we're going to celebrate.
Yes.
The problem in that is that there were a million little victories that you didn't acknowledge. So you couldn't, by not acknowledging it, you couldn't extract all the value from every single one of those things.
Right. Yeah.
And so then, we never truly achieved all that could have been because we didn't extract all the potential and value from every single win along the way. And so what happens for most people is most people will think of a goal or a dream, and an idea will come into their awareness. Boop, here's this idea for $100,000 income or $1 million a year income or a new home, whatever it is. And they fail to recognize that in that very moment, what just happened was the finite mind of man communicated with the infinite mind of God, and an idea that they had never been aware of has now taken place in their mind. It's the birth of a spiritual seed, now an intellectual seed.
Yes.
I mean, that is if there's ever a time to get a bottle of Dom Perignon and up the court, that's the time.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You're right.
But we don't celebrate.
But I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't, and so we don't celebrate. Yeah, so we don't celebrate that moment. Yeah. We wait until, a year or 2 years. And so I celebrate the final destination, usually by either buying myself something or creating some kind of an experience for myself, whether that's going to Rome. I reached one goal and I rented the Sistine Chapel. So I rented the Sistine Chapel for 2 hours. Me, my photographer, and an art docent in the Sistine Chapel alone. There's probably only been a handful of times where only 2 people were in the Sistine Chapel at one time, right? Michelangelo and one other painter, right? And so that's how I'll celebrate, the arrival to that destination. But all along the way, I am celebrating every single little achievement along the way. It's critical to do it. And I'll do that whether it's going out to dinner, whether it's journaling, whether it's taking a weekend off. Somehow I acknowledge the achievement, because then if I acknowledge it, what I'm truly doing is I'm establishing a rapport with it. I'm recognizing its value in my life. Therefore, I can extract all the potential and value it has to give me.
I absolutely love that. That is such a fantastic perspective. And that just solidifies the victory. Like you said, when you're communicating all the way through that this is victorious, you're going to reach that end in the overall victory of it. That is fantastic. Thank you for that, Paul. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So, Paul, somebody wanted to learn more from you. Where could they find you?
They could check out my website, paulmartinelli.net. They could go to the Empowered Living community on Facebook, just Empowered Living, about 2.1 million followers there. But my website has, most of the ways to connect with me, and they can connect to me through you.
Absolutely.
Which is a great way.
I would be more than happy. Yeah. More than happy. So, Paul, I wish that we had all day. What's that?
I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, you've got coming up, you're going to be doing a class on one of my favorite books. And I think this is a must read. And I think this is a must do study. If you've never read the 15 Laws of Growth, if you've never really studied it, I would highly encourage you guys, jump into this study that Stephanie's got. It might already be full. I may be talking out of turn. But if there's space available, get into it, because who you learn from matters, right? Who you learn from matters. Yep. And second off, there's laws of growth. These aren't theories. These are laws of growth. And I think anybody who's part of your community, who you're part of your body of work, if they've not studied that book with you, they need to jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Paul. I agree. And there are a few spots left, so anybody that is interested, by all means, reach out. So thank you for that, Paul. Paul, I got to say, I would love to have you on the show again. I have so enjoyed this, and maybe I can invite you back one day.
You bet. I'd love to.
Yeah. So for now, unfortunately, we run out of time. So I will say goodbye for now. But thank you so much for your wisdoms and your insights and your mentorship. I mean, I think you're an amazing human being, and I so appreciate your support and being on my victory lap.
You bet. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. I love people who are pursuing their dream with passion and just going for it. And congratulations on your success. Can't wait to see how the show evolves and grows. Awesome.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Ciao, ciao. That was so awesome. Thank you so much, Paul, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on my show. I feel so blessed. Paul's insights and wisdoms were absolutely amazing. Were they not? And honestly, I don't have anything else that I think I could possibly add to the show. So I guess this is where I will wrap it up. If you're interested in partaking in my 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth workshop, I invite you to jump onto one of my 1-hour free teaching calls where I'll give you all the details about it. Just send me an email at stephanienielsen.ca@gmail.com and put teaching call in the subject line, and I will let you know where you can get on. If you're interested in learning more about me and what I'm up to, you can also check out my website at www.stephanienielsen.ca, or you can follow me on both Insta and Facebook at stephanienielsen.ca. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next lap. Ciao, ciao.